Hi, everybody. Welcome. We've got a great quick session coming on, and our host or presenter today is Miss Rachel Druckenmiller. If I said that incorrectly, please correct me.
Okay, it's Druckenmiller.
Anyway, Rachel is recognized as the #1 health promotion professional in the U.S. and a under 40 game changer. Rachel is a national thought leader in the field of employee engagement and well-being. With over a dozen years of experience, she is a speaker and facilitator who guides leaders and their teams, organizations, and associations to be more resilient, engaged, connected, and collaborative, virtually and in person. He has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in health science. So please, Rachel also posts inspirational videos on LinkedIn. You can follow her on her website, which is www.unmutedlife.com. We'll put that in the chat. Let us all welcome Rachel Druckenmiller, right?
Nailed it. So, second time's a charm. It is intimidating. Yes. We have 13 letters of anything gets people to freak out a little bit. So
no worries. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with everyone today. I know when we were, originally kind of talking about what we were going to cover here, you're talking about how to unmute yourself. And that's really a portion of what we're going to be discussing today as we talk about how we can be more resilient getting through what's going on right now. And so I wanted to share a little bit of an experience that I had, in the midst of COVID happening with everything else shutting down, everybody having to pivot. This has been certainly not anything that we expected. And then I had another sort of wrinkle thrown into things in May. So about a week into May, I was out running with my husband. We were crossing over an intersection right near our house, and he had gone ahead of me, maybe 10 feet or so ahead of me, and I was very close after him. There had been a Chevy Silverado stopped in the right-hand turn lane that was stopped when we approached the intersection. And as I crossed in front of that truck, he decided to take a turn on red and hit me in the process. And I hit the ground, and my husband helped me hobble over to the sidewalk. I was in a great deal of pain. Ambulance came. I was at the hospital for 9 hours by myself because with COVID, you can't really have anybody with you. And I sustained a T12 compression fracture in my back as a result of that accident. So if you've ever heard someone say the phrase like, "Oh, ever felt like you got hit by a truck?" I'm like, actually, yes. And it is not so great. I would not recommend. But one of the things that happened that I thought was really helpful and a learning opportunity for me was to recognize that all the work I had done leading up to that point, focusing on resilience, focusing on learning how to ask for help, focusing on using my voice to express myself in a way that maybe I hadn't before, that all of that prepared me to get through that time with greater confidence and courage and come out of that in a place where I wasn't as negatively affected as I probably would have been had I not done all that prep work ahead of time and had all those kind of, practice runs of building my own resilience. And so I wanted to share with you today some things that I think are going to be particularly helpful, things that can help you get through this time with a bit more sanity, and things that can help you use your voice for good. So out of curiosity, I would love to start with just asking you guys, as you think about and reflect on the past 6 months, and this is something I did in the hospital bed, by the way, because I'd been teaching it to people and then I had to kind of taste my own medicine, that I learned about the importance of focusing on bright spots. So we can't control what happens to us, but we can control our response to it. And so that was something that had been really deeply embedded inside of me as a result of all of the work that I had been doing in the weeks leading up to that accident. And so I started tracking bright spots in a journal about 3 weeks into March. And so at the end of each day, I would write down a small win or a glimmer of hope, any small glimmer of hope. Maybe I saw a butterfly on a flower. I mean, it didn't have to be anything grandiose. And I know that rewiring my brain that way, retraining my brain to focus on those types of things helped me better navigate the experience after that accident. So I'd love to hear from you all in the chat. If you could let us know what has been a bright spot for you in the past. If you want to make it as long as the past 6 months, that's fine. If you want to think of the past 24 to 48 hours, that might make it easier. But let us know in the chat, what has been a bright spot, a glimmer of hope, a small moment of joy, something that has been something that you can appreciate and recognize from the past few months? You can let us know in the chat. And when we share these with people, when we share our bright spots with people, when we share the things that we appreciate and are grateful for, what that does is that has this contagion effect, because emotions are contagious. Just like the virus is contagious, emotions are contagious. And so we choose what we're going to spread. And so by focusing on what is good and what is working and we want to see more of, it helps us to get more deeply embedded into that. So learning to run, working from home, the break from a busy summer of events, right? That was nice. Not having to travel all the time. I mean, not as much as I love doing that, meeting new people, it was really great to have an opportunity to kind of be more grounded at home. So that's one of the things that we can do. Cooking. A lot of people started becoming really good cooks, right? Being able to exercise and enjoy nature every day. Walking 5 miles a day, that's fantastic. Being part of a team for this event helped me feel grateful after lots of drama, leaving a job right before COVID. That's fantastic, Desiree. So these are the types of things that we can do at the start of a conversation, because don't you find it so easy to snowball the other way? That you ask someone how they're doing and immediately they start telling you all the 50 things that have gone wrong in the past 5 minutes. And we need to do that. We need to give ourselves permission to feel. We need to give ourselves permission to feel not just the Pollyanna positive stuff, but also when we're going through something difficult. And there's a phrase that I would encourage you to really think about as you're going through that has helped me give myself compassion and can help you give yourself compassion and other people compassion to better navigate times like these when there is so much uncertainty and we don't know where things are going. So the phrase is this: it's, I'm doing the best I can with what I have in this moment. And that's all I can expect of anyone, including me. So if you want to repeat that after me, we can, if you'll be muted, so that way it won't be this jumbled, this jumbled mess. But if you'll repeat after me, so I'm doing the best I can with what I have in this moment. And that's all I can expect of anyone, including me. And it is. You can't do any more than your best. And guess what? Some days are 20% days. And those days are so hard. When you're a high performer and you have a high bar for excellence, having a 20% day feels like the worst thing ever. But having that sense of compassion, people who are more resilient have a certain degree of compassion for themselves. And when it comes to being unmuted, one of the things that I believe we need to unmute and give voice to is that sense of compassion toward ourselves and toward other people, especially when life is hard. And that's one of the things that's going to help us get through this more effectively, is learning how to do something like that. Another thing that we can do, and I told you I'd tie this back to Vegas, by the way. So everything somehow goes back to Vegas. You have a nerve in your body called the vagus nerve, and it starts in your brainstem and it goes all the way down to your digestive system, and it interfaces with all of the organ systems on the way down. Now, the vagus nerve is really, really powerful, because what it does is it's connected to the branch of our nervous system that helps us calm down, stay grounded, and relax. It's connected to what's called the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system. So when we activate the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system, that's when we feel like life is good and life is calm and we're safe and we're going to be okay. So if anyone, just show of hands, anyone had a massage before and your stomach just starts growling when you're sitting on the table, or starts grumbling and making noises and you're so incredibly embarrassed? Yeah, that's the worst. It's really weird that what's happening is your parasympathetic nervous system just got kicked on. Your vagus nerve just got activated, and it's VAGUS, by the way. Vagus nerve just got activated, and your body's like, oh man, we're safe. We can just let loose and relax right now. Here's the cool thing that most of us don't realize. There's a lot of things we don't have control over, but we have control over that response. So in any moment, you can actually activate the vagus nerve and trigger that response to get your nervous system to calm down. You have that much power over your body, which is kind of mind-blowing, because we often feel like we're just in that mode of we can't do anything, but you can. So would you guys want to learn a couple ways that you can activate the vagus nerve and get that going? All right. So one of them is through deep breathing. And there's a simple practice I like to use. You don't have to become, and if you are, that's fantastic. You don't have to become a 30-minute-a-day meditator. You don't have to learn some complex way of doing something. I'm all about simple, actionable, practical things that you're actually going to do, not the ideal of what we all hope we'd do. So it's called 4-7-8 breathing. And the way that it works is you breathe into your lower belly. So like you're expanding your lower belly, like you're blowing up a balloon. So you breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. And then you hold your breath for a count of 7. And for those just joining us, we're talking about vagus. Well, it's called the vagus nerve, and how we can activate it to be more resilient and to really unmute our bodies and to give our body an opportunity to respond more effectively to what's going on. So you're going to breathe in through your nose for a count of 4 into your lower belly. You're going to hold your breath for a count of 7. And then you're going to exhale with a whooshing sound, like you are blowing out the candles of a birthday cake for someone who just turned 100. So the whooshing sound is going to sound like this. It's like you're pushing air out. If you want to close your eyes while we do this, you can close your eyes, because when you close your eyes, you further reduce the stimulation to your nervous system. And that's what we're trying to do right now. We are trying to get our thinking brain back online. And when we are in a state of fear, anxiety, or frustration, what happens is your thinking brain, the part of your brain that is responsible for helping you problem solve and innovate and get through difficult situations, it literally goes offline. You can't access it. You're only operating out of that really reactive emotional state, and you're typically not going to make the best decisions. So that's why we do this. When you activate the breath like this, you turn on the vagus nerve, you turn your brain back on, and you can get through things that are difficult more easily. So we're going to do this together. All right. I'm going to get in a comfortable seated position. You can close your eyes if you'd like, totally optional. We're going to breathe in for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. All right. I'm going to guide us through this. So breathe in through your nose into your belly for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So here's what's happening in your body. On the exhale, the vagus nerve turns on. It's the exhale that does it. It's not just the breath itself, it is the exhale that does that. So in any moment when you are feeling, anyone show of hands, anyone had a moment of like panic in the past 6 months? Like both hands, both feet up, yeah. If you have kids, you're like, just my entire body, right? Forget it, it's been nuts. And so when we do that, what we do is we remind ourselves, hey, you have some control here. Take back some of that control that you have given away and decided, well, I'm just, whatever the circumstances, I have no say in this. No, you do. You have some control over that. When we change our physiology by changing our breathing, we change our psychology. When you change your physiology, you change your psychology. You have that much power over your body and over your brain. There's another thing that you can do to activate the vagus nerve. And it's one of my favorites personally, because I love to sing. Anybody here love to sing? I'm not going to make you, but anyone here really like to sing? Even if it's just like a shower diva, maybe? Okay. Like everyone sounds amazing in the shower, right? Or in your car by yourself. So what happens is, because of the vagus nerve, again, is connected to all these different organ systems in the body, and it interfaces with your vocal cords as well. And so when you're singing, humming, or chanting, that is another way that you activate the vagus nerve. Again, these are all things that help your body and to help your brain get out of a state of panic mode so you can stay sane during unpredictable times where things are difficult. So anybody like The Lion King, out of curiosity? Any fans of Disney movies here? A couple fans? Yeah? Okay. Now you're all muted, but you can sing along with me if you'd like. And so the reason for doing this is because, again, when we sing, we activate the vagus nerve. My husband and I love singing. We play music together. We were doing that for 2 hours yesterday. And I just, felt pretty zened out by the end of that. So one of my favorite songs I think is so relevant right now is Hakuna Matata, right? So I'll do a little bit of this for you. Sing along with me if you'd like. Again, it brings joy. You are turning on your vagus nerve when you are singing. So no one can hear you, so you can just sing whatever you want. All right, here we go. Hakuna Matata, what a wonderful phrase. Hakuna Matata, ain't no passing craze. It means no worries for the rest of your days. It's our problem-free philosophy. Hakuna Matata. So singing can do so much. One, it brings us joy, right? Like singing music and Disney songs in particular just bring you joy. They lift your mood. We have more control than we think we do. And one of the ways that we build resilience, one of the ways that we unmute ourselves, right, is connecting to joy. It is activating the parts of our body that can help us better navigate situations that are difficult, where we are more likely to feel a sense of worry or anxiety or feel triggered in some way. We can bring that back by changing our physiology in order to change our psychology. So that's one of the things we can do, again, to be more resilient and to kind of stay sane in the midst of everything that's going on. Another thing that I want to focus on here is to recognize this. We can retrain the brain. One of the ways we do that is by what you shared just a moment ago, was by highlighting bright spots. But another thing we can do is to recognize that what you focus on expands. What you focus on expands. And so if the first thing you do every day is go and turn on the news and see what's going on, regardless of what news you're watching, you're probably going to walk away from that experience not feeling particularly uplifted or hopeful. Chances are. I mean, the news generally does not sell hope, right? They're selling fear, and they're trying to trigger you to keep watching it. And they know that to do that, they have to push all the buttons that make you anxious and afraid. And so you have a choice about what you expose yourself to. So I like to think of using the phrase of be a selective sifter. Be a selective sifter. Be someone who intentionally is mindful of what you are letting in. You have control over that too. One of the ways that we reduce anxiety in general is by reminding ourselves of what we have control over, because anxiety is a reflection of a state of uncertainty. If we are certain, we don't feel anxious. And there's so much uncertainty everywhere, right? Anyone dealt with uncertainty in the past 6 months? Like, I mean, seriously, in this space, are you kidding me? Everybody, at some point has had to deal with that. But again, when we remind ourselves, I can take that back. And here's some of the ways I can do it: by retraining my brain, by reminding yourself of using and thank you for putting that in the chat, by using that that mantra, that phrase of I'm doing the best I can with what I have in this moment. That is what is called self-compassion. People that demonstrate self-compassion are more resilient than people who beat themselves up. Because eventually, if you just keep beating yourself up, you're going to give up, right? You're going to fold. But if you're like, hey, I'm on your team. This is really hard, but I'm on your team. And the way I'm going to show that I'm on your team is by indicating, hey, you know what? You're doing the best you can. I get that today's a 20% day. Just give me all that you got out of that 20%. And so sometimes we need permission to recognize that and to say, you know what? It's a 20% day. That's the best I can do today. So when we think about all the different ways we can be resilient, again, one of them is focusing on what we can do to change our physiology, to change our psychology, right? By changing our movements in order to change our mood. Another thing is by retraining the brain to focus on and expand our thinking around what is good, because what we focus on expands, and highlighting and celebrating those positive moments, but also giving ourselves permission to feel when we're frustrated or when we're uncertain or when we're feeling sad, that we would let ourselves go to that place instead of suppressing it. That's one of the primary ways we mute ourselves is by suppressing our emotions. And if we do not allow ourselves to grieve what's going on, it's going to show up in some other way that we probably are not going to be super happy with down the road. So the last thing I want to mention, and this is connected both to being resilient and to getting unmuted, is around using your voice to ask for what you need. Does anyone have trouble asking for help here? Just out of curiosity, like you need help. Maybe it's in one area of your life, perhaps you have trouble asking for help. Yeah, because we're afraid, oh my gosh, if I ask for help, someone's going to think I can't handle it. They're going to think I'm incompetent. I'm going to be a burden. I don't want to be a burden. They're already dealing with so much. And we justify and rationalize why everybody else except us needs help. And then we're frustrated and resentful that no one sees the plate that we're in. It's like, you can't have it both ways. Like, you got to be willing to ask for help. And I've had to learn this the hard way, whether it was going through burning out 3 years ago and totally bottoming out, losing my voice, having to learn a really hard way, a very humbling way, that if you do not ask for help, you're going to end up alone, frankly. And so now more than ever, it's important to think about, I encourage people to make a circle of connection. So if you want to jot this down for yourself, might be helpful to think of a circle of connection and people that can meet 3 different types of needs that you might have. And so the first need is a practical need. So what are some practical or tangible needs? For instance, maybe you have a neighbor who goes grocery shopping a couple times a week, and you're like, yeah, that'll be the day if I can get out and do something like that. And you can ask them, hey, if you could pick up a couple of these things when you go to the store for me, that would be a huge help. That's an example of a practical need. Or it might be something where you're trying to figure out, if you have kids, how to get them logged on to virtual learning or something. It might be a practical need for somebody. Hey, can you show me the tech how to do this? Simple. It doesn't really require a lot, but it can really help us. And then the second area of need is around strategic needs. So it might be something that is a bit more complex. So if you're trying to understand a more complex process for how to do something, or if it's, just out of curiosity, if you want to put in the chat maybe just a word or phrase that reflects a challenge that you've been facing, that would help me too, just to kind of be more pointed in what I'm sharing here. But if there's a specific, challenge or an area where you feel like you could use help, you're probably not the only one. So if it's a strategic or problem solving need, it might be helpful to find someone who seems to have figured that out and reach out to them, say, hey, I'd love to have a conversation with you. You seem to have figured out how to do X, and I'm really trying to understand that. Would you mind spending some time talking through that with me? Because I really admire how you handled that. So again, that's a little bit more complex. It's not just like a quick answer. It requires more conversation. And the third area of need is emotional needs. Third area of need is emotional needs. And so this is really connected to lack of connections in a new city. So thanks for mentioning that. And so part of that, right, that meeting that emotional need might be, who is someone in your life that in the past, and maybe you haven't talked to this person in some time, who is someone in the past has been someone that perhaps has been easy to talk to, they listen well, when you talk to them, you generally feel better, perhaps they're funny, or maybe they're particularly optimistic or energizing, that you would reach out to them. So just in your own, I know you all have a piece of paper near you, write down on a piece of paper, who's someone that comes to mind when you think of that descriptor? Someone who is an emotional support. They either make you laugh, they make you feel heard, they make you feel supported. Just think of somebody who comes to mind like that for you. And I would invite you to reach out to that person before the end of the day today. If for nothing else, to let them know, hey, thank you for being this kind of person for me, because we don't always let those people know how much we appreciate them. And so when it comes to being more resilient, and again, when it comes to using our voices, part of it is using our voices for good, to acknowledge and affirm and validate the people that are showing up for us, the people who have shown up for us in the past. And to have the courage then to even look at that list, look at that circle, think about what are some of the needs that I have, and who might be some people that could actually help me meet these needs, because I don't have to do this by myself. I don't have to do this by myself. And if you're working with other people who tend to not ask for help, that you would take initiative and say, hey, how can I best support you right now? Maybe it's at home, maybe it's a teenager, maybe it's your significant other. How can I best support you right now? Do you know how few people are ever asking that question of anyone? Like, you will stand out if you ask that question of people. How can I best support you right now? Because more than anything, when we're going through difficult situations, we need to know that someone has our back and that we're not alone. So we can be that lifeline for somebody else, and we can give somebody else permission and the opportunity to be that for us. Don't rob someone of the gift of helping and supporting you. Because I guarantee there is at least one person in your life who, if they knew that you were struggling and they knew that you were keeping quiet about it and you weren't asking for what you needed, that they would probably be upset with you. Like, why didn't you just ask me? Anyone ever had that happen? Someone, you finally asked somebody and they're like, well, why didn't you just tell me that? Or why didn't you just ask me? And we're like, oh, I told myself 50 stories in my head and I prevented myself from speaking up. So I just wanted to sort of mention those couple of things. And again, I know we only had, 20 minutes, kind of a brief time to come together, but just wanted to open it up to see if any questions emerge from that I can be helpful with.
I think this is really great info, and I think you've hit the nail on the head, is that we're afraid to ask. A lot of people maybe feel ashamed, or they don't know, like, as you mentioned, we are in certain times that it's hard to tell people, well, guess what? I don't know if I have a job, or I've lost my job. I don't know what's happening with my company, and I've got my job and I've got to teach kids at home. I mean, there's so many questions swirling around us that you're afraid to ask, because you don't want to look like, oh, do I feel like I can't do it? I'm just, I just don't have the capacity or the bandwidth or whatever the words may be. But I feel that's for a lot of people. And I imagine we could all raise our hands that we do feel afraid to ask. And it takes a little prod from one person who says, guess what? I did this. And you're like, oh, why didn't I do that? Like you said.
Yeah.
But I wanted to wrap this up. We could go on. Rachel will be available in Central Perk if you want to discuss this further or have any further questions. I think I put her website in here too, or do you have your email? Can we just throw that in there?
Oh, yeah.
She's welcome to chat with you. And again, we could continue the conversation. We have about 4 minutes to our next session. This is crazy. It's been a crazy thing, but it's been so much information compacted in a short time. But I want to thank Rachel and everybody else who's joined us on this journey through this part of the age of conversation, and let's keep it going. And I will.
I just wanted to interject quickly before you guys leave. We are having a meditation session next, so if you loved the breathing exercises that Rachel taught, it's going to fit perfectly into the next session. So hang out if you're interested. We'd love to have you.
Yes, please.
Yes.
All right.
So,
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.